Hi, my name's Kathy Skipper and I'm a menopause midwife. Welcome to my channel, The Alchemy of Menopause. I want to start this video with a question to you. And the question is, which menopause reality are you currently listening to? There's a common idea that we create our reality through our thoughts. And so if that's true, I think the next question we have to ask ourselves is, where do we get our thoughts from? Or what sort of influences our thoughts if they're creating our reality? So in terms of menopause, like nearly everything else in the world, when women want to find things out about menopause or have questions, they'll often go to Google. And my experience of going on to Google for menopausal information is that at least the first 10, 12, 15 pages, or the majority of what comes up as menopausal guidance, is all about women's decline, hormonal deficiency, aging skin, possibility of Alzheimer, possibility of this, bone density degradation, whatever it is. It's a whole language of everything that's going wrong. And I'm not saying we're not aging, but this brings me on to the second aspect that I see when I go into Google is that the main focus, or the only focus, is the physical aspect of menopause, which is very real. It is we are being affected by our hormones, we are aging, our bodies are changing. Yes, there is a big physical aspect to menopause, but we are holistic, as I will say in every video. And so we are not just a physical body, and everything that happens to our physical body will affect us emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. We are holistic beings going through a holistic experience. So here we are, with bombarded with information, a lot about medicalizing menopause or trying to stay younger or trying to relieve symptoms. But what about the rest? If we create our own reality, or if we can choose between different realities, what about another reality in terms of menopause or perimenopause? Because there is so much more, in my experience of 10 years working with women, to the perimenopausal journey. And when we go beyond the mainstream reality and into the holistic menopause, we have to honor much more of ourself, and we have to honor the whole psyche. We could say that this then becomes a soul's journey, not just a journey of aging externally, but a soul's journey. And I think part of the responsibility of deciding which reality you want to journey through and into is sorting out the differences of the two realities. What is going on in Google? What is going on in the mainstream? What are the realities to do with menopause? Or am I just going to blindly go into the main ones on the first 10 pages of Google? And also, then the next step is, how have I internalized these realities? What's the realities inside me? Am I juggling with different, um, parts of this conversation within myself? So then it becomes all about focus. We can choose to focus on all that is wrong with us, on our aging skin, on our falling out hair, on our night sweats, on our hormonal decline, whatever it is. Or we can open up our awareness of ourselves and of our journeys and of the goal of perimenopause, which is, in my opinion, to becoming wise women. So those are the choices. I personally chose the latter, or in a way, the latter chose me. And I'm eternally grateful for having chosen this route, because it transformed my life. I wouldn't be sitting here today in any form if I hadn't have gone on the journey that my soul led me on. That took about 6 years for me. It's 2 to 10 years on average for most women. If I hadn't listened to my soul, if I hadn't been taken on this journey. And I do want to share a little bit about my journey here, just to highlight what happened. So I was 50 years old. I found myself at the biggest crossroads of my life. My mother died sort of 6 months before, and I'd met the man who's now my husband. I moved continents with a suitcase So I'd got rid of all my stuff, stored some of my stuff that actually my father, who wasn't in a good state once my mother had died, got rid of. So I lost all my belongings. And I arrived in New Mexico. And the day after my arrival, I got an email from my former gynecologist in France saying, please telephone me tomorrow. We've been trying to find you. I need to talk to you. And when I rang, she said, I'm sorry, we made a mistake, but you have cervical cancer. So I had a hysterectomy and I chose to keep my ovaries, went through the whole thing. I hadn't got any insurance. We got married, la di da di da. And it all ended up with, actually, just before the hysterectomy, Florian, my husband, said, you could get your uterus back and do a little ritual with it. I thought, yes, thank you for saying that. I hadn't thought about it, but absolutely want my uterus back. I don't want it going in the incinerator at the hospital. And so I decided to do a little, wasn't really a ritual. I burnt it and sat with it on the mountain and watched it go up in flames. But the reason why this was important to me was because um, I was aware throughout my life that I'd made very bad decisions with men, had terribly toxic relationships, sort of marginal existence from my, very nice middle class upbringing. I hadn't lived or had any of the experiences of the life I thought I would have had. And I didn't really understand why, but I got the sense that something to do with this sort of female creative center that had cancer and was now being burned. So I thought by burning my uterus, I could leave it all behind somehow, move into the next stage of my life with my now new husband. Little did I know that with these hormonal changes that were starting to trigger in now that I'd had the hysterectomy, even though I did at first start to follow my cycle a little because I kept my ovaries, I was, pushed into perimenopause. And I had no idea how strongly it would or that I would find myself being taken into this deepest, most insightful and meaningful inner journey. I couldn't have imagined it. And I was called into the underworld. I had dreams, these memories were coming up, um, these feelings that I had to process, and at the same time a lot of really true stuff was coming up about my mother line that I knew I had to research. It was coming in from all aspects of my holistic self. My physical body was reacting, my emotional body, my mind, and my spirituality. And it was huge, absolutely huge. By the end of this time, and I went with it. I don't think I had any choice really, but to go with it. And I was sort of gathering fragments of myself. It was like I'd been burst into all these pieces throughout my life, and I was gathering them back, as well as these pieces from my mother line, and trying to fit them all together. And I thought it would never end. That's why, when I say 2 to 10 years for this journey, that's on average how long it takes for women to get through perimenopause. Well, as I said, it took me 6 years. And I thought, oh God, it's never going to end. But it did eventually. And at the end, I wasn't the same person at all. As I think I've said before in previous videos, my voice changed. I found a sense of grounding I had never had. I was dissociated most of my life. I was embodied. I knew who I was for the first time. Basically, I had a roadmap of my story that I had made meaning out of and that finally made sense. I had listened to my soul and followed its guidance, and I was able to make meaning from my story, which enabled me to know myself. The meaning was what made me come alive, I want to say. So all this talk about decline and everything at menopause, for me, it was the opposite. It was finally, after all these years of searching, I found myself. I've pieced myself together. So what else? Yes, what was funny about this was that I also think that small ritual and recuperating my uterus was, ritual talks to the language of the unconscious. These deeper parts of ourself don't talk a linear language. They talk the language of symbolism, of ritual, ceremony, dreams, etc. So I think really by doing that ritual, my unconscious had said to me, okay, so you want to make meaning out of your uterus? You want a womb story? Then here goes. And they gave me this huge womb story that spanned 4 generations. And I am forever grateful because, as I said, it made me who I am today. So the other thing that I did without really thinking about it, but I'm glad I did, was that I recorded my story through poems, through artwork, through collage, through writing. And that's what ended up as being the Alchemy of Menopause workbook that you can get free if you go on to menopausealchemy.com on the homepage. So nearly 10 years on, where I am now in my journey, having received this roadmap, I have been able to hold space and guide hundreds of women to also dive deep and discover their own unique roadmaps, their own unique stories, their true selves. So that really was the gift that I was given from my own journey. So I would say that if we have a choice, and the choice is we can listen to the mainstream reality of menopause, or we can open ourselves to our soul's journey, trust, and allow our soul to take us step by step wherever it wants to go. I mean, that's the thing. We don't know where we're going when we trust and allow the soul to take us. Like the caterpillar doesn't know that it's going to become a butterfly. I didn't know who I was going to become. I didn't know what was going to happen in the story. I just knew I had to keep on going. And I knew that at the heart of my story was an aspect of the feminine principle guiding me that was extremely supportive and mothering and nurturing, and I needed. The dark goddess, the mother of the crone, was there with me. So that was my choice. You can choose the mainstream, which I believe at the heart of the mainstream is materialism and profit, but I don't think it'll get you to the same place. And that's why I'm making this channel in the first place, because I think it's very important. It's not just important on a personal level for each woman, it's important for the world today. That as women become older, they don't just slip off the edge of the world with no sense of identity, no sense of self, but they find through their soul's journey that deep, deep sense of self that will carry them forward with a voice that the world needs now. So I've just closed my book, but I wanted to share a poem that I heard today um, by a mystic called Neville Goddard, who was, let me see, he was writing this in the 60s. He was a writer, speaker, and mystic. But this really fits in with what I'm trying to say. To be transformed, the whole basis of your thoughts must change. But your thoughts cannot change unless you have new ideas or you think from your ideas. All transformation begins with an intense burning desire to be transformed. And I think that's the key. Yes, we have choices. Yes, my question to you was, what reality are you choosing for your menopause journey? But I also think that there needs to be a deep desire and calling to be transformed in order for you to listen to your soul. Lots of love. Thank you.